Welcome to the Kourting Happiness podcast. This is a space where self-care becomes part of your day. A space where you learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness. And my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The Kourting and Kourting Happiness is about a true courtship. I like to say commitment with happiness. The K in Kourting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 85. I'm Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for listening. So, let's take a break. Yes, I said it. Let's take a break. On this podcast, we're going to take a break, and breaks are good for us. According to Meg Selig, they can help in terms of productivity as well as creativity. I will say this, and this literally just happened yesterday. I took a break. Now, I will confess, I usually record this podcast either in advance or on Wednesday. And I uploaded I recorded, I uploaded on Wednesday. So you can have it on Thursday, because every Thursday, of course, I release a new episode of the Kourting Happiness podcast. But instead, yesterday, my body, my mind shouted, we need a break. We need a break. So yesterday I decided to listen. And so today I'm recording this on a Thursday, the day that I usually have it uploaded. It's out there on, across every podcast player. It's on Facebook in terms of being able to access it, in terms of, Facebook allows you to access podcasts in terms of their mobile platform if you're looking at Facebook on your cell phone. And also my website, all of it. So today it's all done around this time. But instead today, what am I doing? I am recording on a Thursday. And I will edit it, upload it, and send it out to the world a little bit later than I planned. And I wanted to share that with you because sometimes I think in life, we get caught up in our plans and like, no, I made this plan for myself and this is how I'm going to do it. But sometimes when our mind and our body shout, we need a break, we need to listen. We need to listen to make sure that we're pouring into ourselves. We need to listen to make sure that we don't break. That's why having a break is important. And so today, I wanted to share why it was important for me to share this, because it's important for me to share, and hopefully there may be someone out there who's listening to the podcast who needs to hear this. We need to make time for ourselves. I want you to give yourself permission when things don't end up as planned. If you're tired, emotionally exhausted, and are busy, I want you to pause. I want you to pause because you deserve it. Meg Selig tells us how work breaks help our brain. Now, in her article, which is published by Psychology Today, you can actually read the article by going to our website at drcourtneyalston.com/podcast/ episode 85. That's drkortneyalston.com/podcast/ episode 85. Selig first defines break for us. And she says this, quote, a break is a brief, really cessation in terms of a ceasing of work and physical exertion or activity. You decide to give it a rest with the intention of getting back to your task within a reasonable amount of time. The interesting part of that is that Selig asks this question, but when you give it a rest, what part of your brain actually needs that rest? And so today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss 3 things that Selig discusses in the article. She provides 5, but again, you can go to drkortneyalston.com to read the article in its entirety, to check out all 5. It's really a great piece in regards to really honoring giving yourself a break. So Selig mentions this. She says, movement breaks are essential for your physical and emotional health. The benefits of taking brief movement breaks have been well researched, and it is constant sitting, whether you're at your desk, the television, that lecture hall, puts you at higher risk of heart disease, diabetes, depression, and obesity. Getting up from your chair to walk, stretch, do yoga, whatever activity you prefer can reduce negative health effects from too much sitting. So just take 5 minutes to maybe walk around. And she mentions taking a 5-minute walk every hour can improve your health and well-being. I love that because sometimes we may say, well, I don't have time. And she has made it doable, or at least gives us a structure to start with. Maybe 5 minutes every hour may be challenging. So maybe it's 5 minutes every other hour. Or maybe it's, dividing up your time and looking at where the best parts of your day where you can take 5 minutes. And if you happen to have longer, right? Maybe it's, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to take 15 minutes at the end of my day, or I'm going to take 15 at the beginning. I mean, whatever that looks like. But what I love is that she gives us a great starting point. And 5-minute walk every hour. I love it. And she talks about how it can improve your health and well-being. It's something I've always wanted to do, but I've never done before, because she spoke to me when it came down to, sitting in a lecture hall, being a college professor. I will tell you what I want to do eventually one day. But what I happen to do in the classroom. So what I want to do is, I often thought about having walking office hours as a professor. I've never done it before. I thought about it years ago. I thought about when I was at Georgia College, and it's a small liberal arts college in Milledgeville, Georgia. And I remember walking around the campus and just admiring the beauty of the town. And I would often walk to the downtown area, which was literally right there where the university is located. And I would walk and I would grab a coffee at the local coffee shop, and sometimes run into a student of mine who's working there. And I always enjoyed that walk. And it was quick, probably a little bit more than 5 minutes, but it meant something throughout my day. And just seeing the town, grabbing my favorite drink, which is coffee, um, doing it differently because normally I would grab a coffee from Starbucks. So I loved being able to have this local alternative, and I loved being able to just look at the beauty in the area. And so I remember when I was taking that walk, I thought, wow, because they had huge porches on campus in terms of our buildings. It's a beautiful historic area, and they've done a incredible job with historical restoration on that campus. And I remember being so inspired, seeing the rocking chairs on the porch and students on the porch and faculty and leadership and staff all on the porch. Sometimes either briefly or just having conversations. And I often thought, I'm like, wow, I wonder what would walking office hours look like. I've always thought, how do I go about coordinating that? Do I tell students that it'll start at this time and those who are there can walk and we can talk, and then maybe pausing time. So someone's out, so I have a sign. So students who actually come a little bit after that, who miss us, I'll just say, we'll be back in 10 or something like that. I've often thought about how to go about working that plan. And so now I am a professor at a different university, now in North Carolina, at North Carolina A&T State University. And I will say I haven't had that opportunity to enforce it or to create it, because the pandemic happened, number one, and number two, my time has looked a little bit different, and I really don't. There's nothing where my building is located on campus that allows me to kind of walk to a local shop. I could walk to university stores within the structure, but again, I loved that walk in Milledgeville because it allowed me to get to know a little bit about the town. So that's something that I'm thinking about doing. Not sure again how that plan, how to work that plan, but I thought that would be great. And having these walking office hours. If you're a college professor and you're like, wow, I like that idea, and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to start that myself, please let me know. I would love to know how it's worked for you as I continue to work out how I would work that out in regards to my plan. So that's a plan that I have. So what I do when I am on campus. So remember, this is something that I want to do. Now I'm going to talk about something that I do, that I constantly implement. So as a college professor, I very rarely sit. I only usually sit if a couple of things are happening. Usually, if I'm dealing with my health issues and I may find myself needing to take a pause and to have a seat. If I maybe need to rest for whatever reason, but that's not very common that I do that. And I say that because my Apple Watch knows usually when I'm teaching that I'm moving. And so I'll move around the classroom. I will walk around. I'm very interactive. I really value having interactive discussions with students in my class. So I am not the person that usually stands up front and just sharing information, kind of talking to myself. What I do is I'm very interactive. I love having a conversation. Maybe it's kind of clear as it relates to this podcast, how I really value being able to talk and connect and interact. And so I will often just walk around And even when we're interacting, I'm not just standing there. I will just walk around, and sometimes I end up getting steps in, and lots of steps in. But I notice when I do that, I feel great. I feel great opposed to sitting there or standing in one location and leaning against the podium. I get moving. So my thoughts in terms of sharing that with you is see what works. For me, it's moving during the lecture, having that movement. It's been very helpful. I loved hearing from colleagues who have their class move around. One of my mentors in my PhD program, who I often talk about, Dr. Julie Dodd, I remember one day for a class, she took us out in the atrium. We have like this atrium at University of Florida, College of Journalism and Communication. And I was like, wow, it was literally outside our door, but you would have thought it was, she took us on a field trip. I guess it felt good because it was a new environment. But I love this in terms of what Selig shares in terms of movement breaks. Think about what movement breaks can mean to you. Another thing is I've had this incredible woman on the podcast before, and that was sharing mindfulness at work. And her name is Ardinia Myrick. She's a dear friend of mine, one of my best friends. She's assistant to the provost at Morgan State University. As an assistant provost, I tell you, Ardinia is incredible in regards to her brilliance, but her commitment to serve the university and to serve the world. One of the things that I really treasure about Ardinia, and I've shared it on this podcast and actually I've shared it across LinkedIn for our LinkedIn lives, and that is that she has a midday meditation every Wednesday. Every Wednesday, she has a meditation university wide, and she allows during that structure, she allows individuals to share, and she provides all these resources. It is phenomenal. It's so great that faculty, staff, leadership, they show up during breaks. So and I mean, like, they're holiday breaks. So that says a lot. But what I love so much is that she recently just started, I think it's called Get Moving Morgan, or Get Moving, or something like that. It's fairly new, literally. I think it's like their first or second week in terms of this program. And she's now elevated her program to movement breaks. You can't beat movement breaks. Find one that works for you. So number 2, breaks can prevent decision fatigue. So she talks about how author S.J. Scott points out the need to make frequent decisions throughout your day can wear your willpower, excuse me, and reasoning ability. So citing a famous study, she talks about how Scott notes about judges are more likely to grant paroles to prisoners after their 2 daily breaks than after working for a while, which is interesting study. And a decision fatigue set in. The rate of granting paroles gradually dropped to nearly 0%, because judges resorted to the easiest and safest option: just say no. Decision fatigue can lead to simplistic decision making and procrastination. So it's interesting because I recently talked about Zoom fatigue. We are countless Zoom meetings, and one Zoom meeting after the next Zoom meeting, and there's a thing called Zoom fatigue. We need breaks. Breaks serve us. So I really treasure that Selig mentioned and discussed the results of this research in regards to the fact of being able to see the value in taking a break and then noticing when we have fatigue, or in this case, decision fatigue. So here's the third, which is actually the fourth in her article. Remember, there's 5. I'm only going to discuss 3 on this podcast. Please feel free to go to drkortnialston.com/podcast/ episode 85 to read the article in its entirety. Again, that's drkortnialston.com/podcast/ episode 85 to read this really insightful article in regards to taking breaks. So here's the third one that I'm going to discuss. She says breaks increase productivity and creativity, which of course speaks and resonates with me a great deal, because here I am, I'm a happiness scholar, college professor, creator of this podcast, creator of the Kourting Happiness community, and then also have multiple other creative projects that I'm working on. So I value creativity, but I also, of course, value being productive. She says working for long stretches without breaks leads to stress and exhaustion. Sound familiar to you? Taking breaks refreshes the mind, replenishes your mental resources, and helps you become more creative. She mentions the aha moments came more often to those who took breaks, according to research. Other evidence suggests that taking regular breaks raises workers' level of engagement, in which in turn is highly correlated with productivity. So imagine what's happening over at Morgan State University with Ardenia Myrick and the great work she's doing as relates to midday meditation and practicing mindfulness and getting the university, right? Not just one department, the university, to focus in on get moving, love it. We all need to think about how to get moving, how to take breaks, and acknowledging when we're experiencing fatigue and what to do. So I love that Meg Selig shared all of this great information in terms of the value and the importance of taking a break. So if you're listening to the podcast and you need to take a break, I hope this episode gives you permission slip that you need to do just that. And if you're wondering, Dr. Kortni, I can't take a break. I can't take a break. If that resonates with you, I want to share this with you. You deserve it. Your well-being is your most important job. You don't want to work to the point that breaks you. You don't want to work to the point that breaks you. Your well-being is your most important job. So I hope you take that break. Thank you so much for listening. Let's continue this conversation online. Email us at podcast@drkortnialston.com. That's podcast@drkortnialston.com. Join us on Instagram at Kourting Happiness. Don't forget, that's courting with a K. Also, I hope you join our private Facebook community. You can find us at Kourting Happiness Podcast Community. Our private Facebook group is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Now, are you ready to spread happiness? We hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.